If you've been trying to use willpower to quit porn and it hasn't been working for you, then you're doing it all wrong. If you don't know me, my name is Krishna, and I help young men quit their porn addictions by teaching the lessons that I personally learned throughout my journey. I've tried to use willpower to quit porn for such a long time. I remember 3-4 years ago, I would only get to day 3 or day 4, and then I'd relapse over and over and over again because the urges would be too intense. They would be way too strong for me to resist. I remember sitting there in my room on my phone, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on whatever, and the urges would come, right? I get really, really horny. And after I would get really, really horny, I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, I can't relapse again. I don't want to relapse again. I promised myself that I would quit porn. I'd be saying these things in my head, trying to fight the urge, resist the urge. But the thing is that it never worked. It didn't work. Now, 4 years later, I'm at the point now where I can just feel horny. And that's it. That's the only thing I feel. I don't feel an urge to watch porn. I don't feel an urge to jack off. I don't feel any urges to do any of that type of stuff, right? And I haven't watched porn in 4 years. A lot of guys, they try to only use willpower to quit porn. They kind of try to bro their way through it. Like, oh yeah, it's all just willpower, bro. That's not the case. And you've had personal experience with this as well, if you can relate to what I'm saying. You've tried to quit porn with willpower for so long, but it never works. I think there's 2 things that at least help me that I want to share with you as well. The first thing is that identity oftentimes trumps willpower. Well, it doesn't trump willpower. It helps willpower develop. It makes it more effective, if that makes any sense. When you start to have the identity of somebody who doesn't struggle with porn addiction, not somebody who's quitting, but somebody who simply doesn't struggle with porn addiction, somebody who's on self-improvement, who's disciplined, who's strong, who's virtuous, if you start to have that identity, then you're going to start to behave more like that person. You're going to behave more like that person, but in order to behave more like that person, you need to first have that identity. You need to have that baseline. Our baseline is who we are. And so I noticed that when I started aligning my actions with my identity, with the person that I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the person who was quitting porn, who was addicted to porn, who was on nofap. I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be the person who doesn't watch porn, who just doesn't need it. It's not part of who he is, right? I wanted to become the best version of me. And so once I started aligning my actions to that higher version of me, it became a lot easier not to relapse. Because when the urge would come, I wouldn't think, I have to fight this, I can't relapse again, I promise myself. I don't have to say any of that. I just think, this is not aligned with who I want to be. One is simply related to actions, one is related to identity. Those are different things. They're related somewhat, of course. But if you have the identity of somebody who doesn't watch porn, the willpower that you have to then use to resist the urge is going to be way, way more effective at doing its job. So not only does identity strengthen willpower or make it more effective, environment, your surroundings, they often trump willpower as well. So there's a story about US soldiers during the Vietnam War. When they went to Vietnam, they were addicted to opium, right? They were addicted to opioids and all these hard drugs that are just not good for you at all. They're simply not good for you. And the interesting thing is that when those people went back to the US after the Vietnam War, they went back home, they quit. They all quit. They all stopped using opium. Why? Why did they do that? Because your environment plays a huge role in the behaviors that you do. Because you start to associate certain behaviors with a certain environment. So I remember every time that I would walk into my room, I would associate my room with porn, with relapsing, right? And so that made it easier for the urges to come about, and it made it easier to relapse. And so when I was most addicted to porn when I was just at my house, right, at my regular hometown. That's when I would relapse the most. When I stayed in other countries, I relapsed significantly less. I remember during a period of time between ninth grade and between 10th grade, between that summer, I stayed in India, right, because my family's from there. So we stayed in India for almost a month and a half. And during that time, I didn't relapse for the majority of the entire trip. I think I only fapped. I didn't even watch porn. I think I only fapped once. During the entire period of 1.5 months, I did it once. Previously, I was doing it every single day, a couple times a day, right? What changed, right? What changed for me? I went from doing it once or twice a day, every single day, to now only doing it one time over the period of 1.5 months. So I go from 7 to 14 times a week to once every 1.5 months. How was I able to make that huge change? Because I changed my environment drastically, right? I literally lived in a different country, right? And so if you want to behave a different way, then you need to change your environment. You may not need to necessarily level up your willpower. You need to change your environment. And so the action step that I would give you, maybe you can't move out, that's fine. But I would encourage you to change your environment in some way. I would tell you, maybe a simple thing that you can do is just simply rearrange your room, right? How your room is arranged in a way. Your bed's over there, your desk is over here, your closet's in that corner over there. Why don't you just shift your room around, right? Why don't you rearrange the furniture? Maybe the next time you get an urge, instead of just sitting there in your room trying to fight the urge, why don't you just get up and go downstairs, go outside, change your environment. If you want to change your behavior, you change your environment. And that's significantly easier than just trying to fight the urge with willpower. If you found this video was helpful for you and you want to go more in depth into the actual step-by-step system that you can use to quit porn, I have a program. It has 5 main phases that you can go through. Everything is laid out for you, all the modules, all the trainings, everything that you need in order to not only just quit porn, but become the person that you want to be, become the higher version of you. So if you're interested in that, then you can go and you can click the link in the description down below. Take care, bro.